Hey guys, it's Alex, and today I'm here with the Dilemmas of a Booknerd tag. This was originally created by Lindsay's Little Library, and I will link her video down below. I was not tagged by anyone, to my knowledge, but I just do what I want. The first question is book storage. How do you store and organize your books? And as you can see behind me, I have those pretty Billy bookcases from IKEA. I have 4 of them against my walls where I store most of my books, and then I have a small brown bookcase on that wall over there. Most of my books get to be displayed on these bookcases. I will say that I have moved in with my boyfriend, so I don't actually live here at my parents' house anymore. I just film here because it's prettier, and that means that I don't get to be near all my pretty books and pretty bookcases. My boyfriend's apartment does not have room for any of these, so I am separated from my books, which is sad. And at his place, I just dump the books that I take over there in a pile on one of his chairs, which is significantly less aesthetically pleasing. As for organizing them, I try to organize them similar to how a library organizes their books. I like to go by genre, and then within genre, theoretically, organized by author's last name. I like to go by genre just because I don't always remember the author's names of books, but if I remember a book, I'll remember generally where it is, if it's like a thriller or an adult fiction or whatever it happens to be. If it's with its kind, I can have an easier time finding it. They're not really organized by author's last name currently, but that is the long-term goal. And, there are random shelves that are just kind of miscellaneous shelves, and I have a shelf all the way up in the corner that's just mass market paperbacks because it's a very short shelf, so mass market paperbacks are about the only thing that fit on it. Question 2 is tracking. How do you keep track of the books you've read and what books you own? The main place where I keep track of the books that I've read is my reading journal, which I have been keeping since 2010. This is my main thing. I list every book that I read in here, and I've been consistent at it for almost a decade now. I also use Goodreads, where I write reviews for every book, and I have 2 spreadsheets that I've started keeping track of for this year just so I can track stats and see if that's useful to me at the end of the year. But mostly it's just this reading journal. As for the books that I own, I do have a spreadsheet on Google that has an entire list of every book that I own and haven't read. I don't currently keep track of the books I own and have read, but they're all in a spreadsheet, and it's always linked at the bottom of this video in case you want to see all the many books I own and haven't quite read yet. Question 3 is borrow. Do you lend books out? And I do, but only if I'd be okay with not getting that book back. And for me, the question I always ask myself is, if this person did not return this book, would I want to buy another copy to replace it? And if the answer is yes, then I don't loan that book out. But if the answer is no, I wouldn't bother buying another copy, then I'm fine lending it out. I feel like it's easier for me to unhaul books if I know they're going to a good home. I do still expect to get books back that I lend out, but I only lend them out if I'd be okay with not getting them back. Question 4 is buying. How do you buy or acquire books? And I buy the vast majority of my books at thrift stores, especially very cheap thrift stores. I am on a budget, so I can't afford to buy pretty much any new books, and even used bookstores where books are like a couple of dollars each is kind of out of my price range a little bit. My favorite thrift store has a $5 for a box deal, so I frequently go there and just get a box of books. And when I say box, I mean large box. I think the last box I bought from there, I fit 26 books in, and I did not pack them in very tightly. So that is where I buy pretty much all of my books. Question 5, comments. How do you reply to the "how do you read so much" comment, or anything similar? I usually just say that I have no life and that makes things easier, which is true to a degree, but if you want the in-depth answer, I do have very little life. I have very few obligations. I don't work full-time. I don't have kids. I have a cat who is kind of low maintenance and just down to hang out. I have a boyfriend who's also low maintenance, so not a whole lot of outside life responsibilities. I also read kind of quickly. Not super fast, but I do read a little bit faster than the norm. And see, I make a lot of time for my reading. I don't watch a lot of Netflix. I don't watch a lot of movies or TV shows. I don't play video games. I don't really have a lot of friends that I go out and hang out with. So reading is kind of how I largely spend my time, how I choose to spend my time. I prioritize it, and I have few enough obligations that I can prioritize it a lot. Question 6 is next book. How do you choose the next book that you read? I'm a mood reader, so I kind of just pick up whatever catches my fancy. Um, there's really like no plan. It's just like, that looks interesting, and I read it. Question 7 is travel. How do you pick what book to take on vacation with you? Kind of the same as the last question, just whatever tickles my fancy at that moment. I also tend to take a lot more rereads when I travel because I don't want to get stuck somewhere and have to read a book that I don't like. And also, if I take a reread, I know roughly how long that book is going to take me to read. I know, for example, how long it takes me to read the Harry Potter series. So if I take that, I can kind of plan better instead of getting stuck taking either a bunch of books or worrying that because I only took a couple, that even though they look like they should take me the whole vacation, I might finish them too early. And question 8 is annotate. Do you write in, highlight, or annotate your books in any way? And I do not. I wish I did because I really do like annotated books. I love finding books in thrift stores that have been just like annotated and all written in. I think that's amazing and it's so much fun to read those books. But it does kind of interrupt the flow of my reading. I like to get absorbed in a story and just like sit there for hours and not look up from the page. And annotating kind of does like interrupt that. And it's not quite as enjoyable a reading experience for me, which is disappointing because I would love to. Question 9 is new or backlist. Do you prefer new or backlist books? And I would say generally backlist. I do read a variety. I read some new releases, but most of the books I read are just like things that have been on my TBR for ages because I have a TBR on Goodreads of over 1,200 books, which is way too many. And I do put new releases on there. It's just that by the time I get to those new releases, they're no longer new releases. But I do get to some. I just think it's, in general, I prioritize the books that have been around the longest. And the final question, question 10, sequels. Do you read books as they are released or wait for an entire series to be published before reading one book? I usually wait, which is not always the most fun thing to do, but I consume so much media that I don't remember things very well if I take them in episodically. And I'm that way with TV shows too. I don't like watching one episode a week because I don't remember what has happened. I'm much better when I can binge something. That helps my memory a lot more. I know for some people, if they read something very quickly, they don't remember it as well, but I actually remember it much better if I sit down and read a book in one day versus if I try to read one chapter a day. I can't do that. So it's kind of the same for reading books in series. I prefer to read them all at once so I don't forget what has happened if I'm reading them like a couple months or even years apart. I'd have to reread them and I don't like to do that all the time. So generally I wait until series are all out so I can binge them, but sometimes I do read them before the whole series is out and then I just have to suffer and wait, and I sometimes forget about those books, which is not good either. So waiting until the whole series is out is much better for me. There isn't a question 11, but I'm just going to tag some people now, so definitely do this if you want to. It's a fun tag, but I'm going to tag Shannon Riddler, Book Boop, and Novelle Novels, so definitely check out all their channels. They're all wonderful people who I don't think have done this tag, although I could be wrong. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all again soon.